After frame by frame animation, let's go towards tween animation. In tween animation, you have to give a starting point, an ending point, and Android will calculate all the middle frames from the starting point till the ending point. So let's start with a simple animation. This is done to resize objects, change location, etc. during animation. We have already gone through this. So we will create a new project and name it as Tween Animation, and we'll make the layout look something like this. Okay, you have guessed it right. There is only one control on the screen, that is a button. This is a relative layout because the button is placed at the center of the screen. That is, the position of the button is with respect to the parent. That is why this is a relative layout. And you have to make the button, the ID of the button as BTN button, and you have to mention a property called as Android layout center in parent true. This will actually make the button to be center inside the parent. We'll do this thing when we'll be actually coding this application in real time. Let's start with this. Let's create an animation XML file. Whenever you'll be doing a tweened animation, you'll be requiring an animation XML file. This animation XML file will be placed inside the anim folder, inside the res folder. Okay, so we have res/anim folder where we'll be having the animation XML file. So let's create a folder inside res folder and name it as anim. We create a tween.xml file and change the parent element to scale. Okay, because we have to perform a scale animation. So inside the tween XML file, we'll change the parent element to scale. This is copied from the main activity as we did in the last times let's do it section. So we have the XML, we have the scale as the base element, and we have copied this complete XML NS Android from the main activity.xml file. And inside this, we have to actually tell the Android OS how to perform the animation. We will say you go from 50% in the X direction to 200% in the Y direction, in the X direction. That is, the control will scale from half its size to double its size in X. Similarly, half its size to double its size in Y direction. So the control will look like coming out of the screen from half its size to double its size. You have to make the pivot X and pivot Y. Now understand the meaning of pivot. Pivot is the fixed point on the control. If we say pivot X 50, pivot Y 50, that indicates that fix the center point of the control and just animate the other parts. That is, it will fix the center point and it will animate the complete control from the center point from 50% to 200%. And we have to give the duration as 4000. That is, the animation will be performed in 4000 milliseconds or 4 seconds. So far so good. You have coded the animation XML file. Once the XML file is ready, then your next part will be to code the Java file of this. So we'll write the Java code. Inside the Java code, we have to start the animation whenever the button is clicked. So we will say final button btn click equals to button find view by id r.id.btn click. This indicates that you are getting the reference of the button. You have to do this inside the onCreate method after set content view. Okay, so we'll say btn click dot set onClick listener, new onClick listener, public void onClick. Inside the onClick, we have to first load the animation from the XML file to the Java file. To do this, we have to use the following syntax. We'll say animation anim equals to animation utilities. This is a class. We'll say animation utilities dot load animation. This is the name of the activity. In our case, this will be main activity. So we'll say main activity dot this, comma, r.anim.tweened. This is the name of the XML file that we have. So let's revise the syntax. We have animation anim equals to animation utilities dot load animation. This will actually load the animation. Which animation we want to load? We want to load r.anim.tweened animation. We want to load this animation inside our activity. So we'll give the activity name over here. In this case, the activity name is Tween Animation, but when we'll be coding it, the name of the activity will be main activity. So we'll say main activity dot this, and once the animation is loaded, then we have to just start that animation on the control. So we'll say btn click dot start animation anim. This will actually start the animation anim on your control btn click. I hope that was very simple. We had just created a new project with the name Tweened Animation. Inside this Tweened Animation, we had the main layout. Inside the layout, we had just one button. The button's name was BTN button or BTN click. After this, we created a new folder inside the RES folder and named that folder as anim, ANIM. Inside this anim folder, we created a new XML file. The XML file's name was tweened.xml. The base element of the XML file was scale. We mentioned 7 properties inside this. We had from X scale, to X scale, from Y scale, to Y scale, pivot X, pivot Y, and duration. Then we came to our Java code. We took the reference of the button. Inside the click listener for the button, we loaded the animation by saying animation utils.load animation, and then we started the animation on the button by saying btn click.start animation. This will actually perform a tween animation on the button. Once we are done with the scale animation, we have to appreciate that there are more animations available in the actual Android OS. These animations can be found on the following links. If you want, you can pause the video and you can take a note of all the links in your copies. Moving ahead, let's add the remaining 3 animations that we had promised earlier. We had the scale animation, translate animation, rotate animation, and alpha animation. Out of these 4, we have covered the first one, that is the scale animation. So let's try to cover the other 3 animations. For all the 3 animations to occur at the same point of time, you have to change the base element of the XML file to set, set. This indicates that this XML file contains a set of animations. In our case, we'll be having all the animations in the same XML file. So let's code this thing up. That's fine. At times we need to have multiple animations to happen on the same view. All these animations have to be combined in a set and then played simultaneously to give a concurrent effect. Achieving this is very easy in Android. Let's do this. For this, we have to keep the base element of the XML file to set, set. Okay. So we would use the same button and apply multiple animations on the button itself. So let's do that. We'll add the following code to the Tween Animation XML file. We'll have the set as the base element because our animation is a set of animations, set of multiple animations, so we'll keep it set. Inside this, we have the scale animation. This is fine. We have already done this thing. The second animation is a rotate animation. For rotate, you have to give from degrees and to degrees, that is from what angle to which angle you have to move. You have to give pivot X, pivot Y again, because whenever you'll be moving, the rotation will be occurring from a center fixed point. So we'll give that fixed point to 50-50%. That is, fix the X at 50 and fix the Y at 50. You don't want any offset in the angle, and you will give the duration to be 4000, that is 4 seconds. Okay. Out of these properties, the offset property is 0. Why we have given it 0? Because whenever we'll be starting the animation, we will be requiring that the object must not have any offset angle. Okay, because we want the angle to go from 0 to 360 without any offset. Then we'll have the alpha animation. In alpha, we have to say from alpha and to alpha. From alpha indicates the starting transparency level of the control. To alpha indicates the ending transparency level of the control. In our case, we'll say at the starting, make the control 0.1 or 10% opaque. That is, the control will be 90% transparent. To alpha is 1.0, that indicates make the control 100% opaque, or 0% transparent. That is, the control will be non-transparent. It will go from 0.1 to 1. That is, it will go from 10% opaqueness to full opaqueness. That is, from 90% of transparency to no transparency. In again a duration of 4 seconds. Then we have translate, that is, we'll be moving the control from point to point. So we'll say from x delta to x delta, that is, you have to move the control from 100% of the screen to minus 100% of the screen. Again, y delta to y delta, that is from 100% of the screen in the y direction to 100% of the screen in the y direction. That is, the control from move from the lower left corner of the screen to the upper right corner of the screen. Okay, in a duration of 4000 milliseconds or 4 seconds. And you have to make the Z adjustment at the top. That is, the top of the control should be adjusted whenever we'll be performing the translate animation. And this completes the XML file. Now all these values can be changed depending upon your application, and I will suggest you to actually play around with all the values and see the different effects that you get with the animation. For example, you can change the pivot X, pivot Y and see what is the effect of pivot X, pivot Y. You can change the starting offset. You can change the timing. You can change the X scale to X scale. You can change the alpha animation, or what you can do is you can even reverse this effect from going from 1 alpha to 0.1 alpha. That indicates going from full opaqueness to full transparency. Then you can change the X delta, Y delta and duration and adjustment. Okay, all these properties should be changed by you, and you must actually see the effect of all the properties when performing an actual animation. So let's do this in actual practice and see what is the output of all the animations. Okay, let's do it. For the Tweened animation, go to File and say New Android Application Project. Give the application name as Tweened Animation. The package name as com.fitech. SDK as 2.3.1. Next. Give the title as Tweened Animation and click on Finish. I don't want this hello world from here. I'll remove it. Right click and delete. I want to add an button over here which will be placed at the center of the parent. So that's a relative layout. To create a relative layout, we had our steps. Right click, change the layout first to linear layout, add the button, right click on the button, edit the text, click to animate, right click on the button and say edit ID, btn animate. Now go to the XML file, right click, source, cleanup document, and make the layout from linear to relative. Copy it and paste it over here. And now we want the button to be center in the parent. So I'll say LAY control space. If you will scroll down, you will get center in parent. Make it to be true. Okay, let's do that again. I just press LAY control space. It will give me the complete list as a center in parent, and I'll make it to be true. Okay, that's fine. You will be able to see that the animate is in the center of the parent. Now I want to add an Android XML file. So I'll right click on RES, new folder, anim, because I want to add the animation file. Right click on the anim file folder, new Android XML file, give it to be tweened. Okay. Now once tweened.xml is up and running, you have to first make this file as an Android XML file, not a normal file. To do that, go to the main XML file, come to the XML of it, copy this XML NS from here, right click, copy it, go to tween.xml and paste it after this. Okay, so far so good. I have to change the base element of this to scale because I'm performing a scale animation, and I have to then define the properties of the scale inside the scale tag only. Okay, I don't have to go over here. I have to mention all the properties inside this tag. How many properties were there? There was first property called as from x scale equals to 0.5 space Android colon from or to x scale equals to 2. Now look at the camel casing of this. From is f small, x is a new word, so x capital, scale is a new word, so s capital. So you have from x scale to x scale. Similarly, you'll have Android from y scale 0.5 and Android to y, and press control space. It will give you the list. To y scale is 2 because I want to make it from 50% to 200%. Then I will say Android colon pivot x equals to 50%. Say Android colon pivot y equals to 50%. That indicates the center point of the control will be fixed. Then I'll say Android dur duration equals to say 4000 because I want this animation to happen in 4 seconds. Now the newcomers will face some difficulties over here. If you will keep x scale as s small, it will not work. You have to keep s as capital always. If you will keep x small, this will also not work. You have to keep x capital always. Pivot y, y is capital. And you have to make sure that you keep the syntax as it is. You can change the values depending upon your choice. Okay. So far so good. We are able to create the tweened XML file. Let's go to the source. We want the animation to start when someone clicks on the button. So I'll just take the reference of it. So I'll say step 1, get the reference of the controls. So I'll say final but control space for button btn animate equals to button find view by id r.id.btn animate, and I'll say btn animate dot set on click listener new on click listener. Let me just import that thing. Okay, this is the step 2. Write the on click listener for this. That's fine. Now let's first load the animation over here. So I'll say animation anim equals to animation utilities. I'll have animation utilities class over here dot load animation. This function requires the first argument to be the context, that is the application where you want to load this animation. I want it to be loaded inside the main activity, so I'll say main activity dot this. Where have we kept the animation? We have kept the animation inside the res folder, inside the anim folder, inside tween.xml. So to get the reference of res, I'll say r dot anim dot tweened.xml. It will give me the reference of tweened animation. Then I'll say btn animate dot start animation anim. Just these 2 lines of code and you will be able to start a sample animation on the button. Right click on this and say run as Android application. It will install the application on the device and it will run it. Let me click on that. You'll be able to see that the control is being animated from 50% of the size to 200% of the size. If I go to the XML file now, let me make it from 10% of size to say triple the size. So I'll just again right click, run as Android application. You'll be able to see that the control will go from very small to very, very big. Click on it. As you can see, that's perfectly fine. Let us see the meaning of pivot. As you can see, the control is animating from the center, means the center point of the control is fixed. That is not moving. If you will keep the pivot to say 0% and 0%, that indicates this point, that is the first point of the control, will not move. The remaining control will animate. Let's run this thing again. Make sure whenever you make a change, you run the application once again, because apart from that, you will not be able to see the changes happening on the screen. Click on the control again, you'll be able to see that it is animating, but this point, that is the left point, is not changing. That is the pivot or the fixed point of the control. You can also change the duration. If I'll make the duration to say 1 second, the animation will happen very, very fast. That is, in 1 second it will go from 10% to 300%. Launch it. So that the animation was very, very quick. That is, it was happening at a very fast rate. So you can just vary the properties of the animation file so as to get all the different types of animations available on the device. Okay, so let's do it for the other animation that we have. We have to change the base element to set because we are performing a set of animations, and I'll make it set again. And let me close this thing over here. Now I want to perform a scale animation, so scale will remain as it is, as the previous one. I want to perform the rotate animation, so I'll say rotate. And let's go inside the rotate and say Android colon. I'll say from degrees 0, Android colon 2 degrees, say 180, because I want to rotate from completely horizontal to completely vertical. Then I'll say Android colon duration equals to say 4000. I'll say Android colon, and let me say pivot X to 50%, and Android colon pivot Y to say 50%, and let me give Android colon, and let me say start offset to 0. There are many properties, but out of those properties we are filling only a few because we want to have the animation running. Let's make the translate animation. Say Android colon, I'll say from X delta 100%, Android colon 2X delta minus 100%. You just copy this text and make it from Y delta and 2Y delta. Let me say Android colon duration equals to 4000. The other animation remaining is alpha animation, so I'll say alpha. Let me just give some properties of the alpha animation. I'll give Android colon from alpha is 0.1, Android colon to alpha is 1, Android colon, I'll say duration is 4000, and say Android colon, I think I have done everything, Z adjustment to be top. That's fine. So I'll just right click on the Tweened animation and say run as another application. I don't have to change anything else because all the animation has already been performed. I have to just add some effects. So I'm just adding those effects inside the set command. If you will be able to see the animation, got that? You are able to perform all the animations. That is, first of all, scale because the control is scaling. Second, rotate, and the control is rotating. Third, translate. As you can see, the control is coming from here to here, it's translating. And fourth is alpha because it is changing the transparency of the control.